Thanks for checking out another clip of The Cashflow Contractor. We'd love to have you as a part of our audience. Click subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
What it looks like to be prepared for, selling to private equity, what makes a difference there. How can you, how far in advance do you advise really planning for this sale?
Well, I would say, as soon as possible. We
Okay.
we like to have, from our perspective, and I would say, what we like to have versus, it's kind of like, hey, what we like versus what we get.
Right.
Typically what we get is, we get an engagement and it's like, all right, I want to sell my business, and it's right away like moving to let's start moving materials, go to market, etc. Where we like to be is, a year, 2 years, 3 years, there's conversations that I've had, for 5 years with certain folks that eventually they're going to transact. And when they're ready, we hope that they kind of choose us,
Right.
as we, kind of check in and help guide. And the more that we can kind of have our, not necessarily like we're not doing any of the work, but it's just advising and kind of being that third party to check in and check out on, all right, do I make this decision? Should I make this decision? Being kind of that sounding board. Most owners, they really just have kind of, said they've got their teams. They talk to some of their buddies. They talk to these buy side brokers and, all the people that are kind of calling inbound. I mean, they're going to tell you what you want to hear, but actually having somebody on your team that says, all right, I think, looking at, software X, Y, and Z, even though like it's a great development firm, you probably should go with ServiceTitan if you want to get max value, because everybody else has it. And if you don't, they're going to have to basically rip it out and integrate it anyway. So you might as well have it.
Right.
I mean, like that, and then as you grow and scale, your mistakes, they, the mistakes that you make, the dollars are bigger than when you're smaller. And so
Yeah.
kind of having a sounding board and having kind of people that are in the room that you can chat and bounce ideas off to, see them at trade shows, check in, et cetera, do walkthroughs, having that, kind of advisory, board or whatever really adds a lot of value, because, they're the ones that can kind of help, kind of steer that process so that when it does time to go into market, number one, a lot of the buyers know about you and know that, an advisor has been in there kind of working. So they know that they're, going to get a business that, is not as rough around the edges, if you will, so
Yeah.
we kind of, put everything into practice.
Yeah. Okay. Mistakes. Obviously, we've, implementing the wrong software just because it saves you a buck or because it's unique to you or whatever it is. We've talked about waiting too long or not even talking to an advisory firm like yourself. What are some other mistakes? And then I remember now we had mentioned culture, and I do want to go back to that, but let's talk about mistakes really quick.
Yeah. I mean, I think, from a mistake perspective, I wouldn't say like mistake, but more like learning moments, is, from an owner's perspective, we can't underestimate, the proper, kind of spending the money up front to make sure that your accounting and your chart of accounts and, that kind of the foundation. As you look, I mean, we think about, we use a lot of housing analogies, right? Like making sure that the foundation is solid and secure and kind of the house is in
Yeah.
order, because that allows you to, not just make sure that, I mean, and there's a handful of opportunity. I mean, we're talking about kind of a lot of these, trade businesses. I'm sure everybody has stories. Martin probably has it. You probably have them, but, like the fraud and some of the waste, and, so there's some that you just definitely have to be on the lookout for some shady characters out there, right?
Hmm.
Not just in business, but also everywhere else. But, making sure that having your financial house in order and having a CPA that you trust and kind of having that level of checkoff and kind of checks and balances, so that, that piece of it can be, managed, and then you can build on top of it, because that's going to provide your KPIs and your management, what you're going to use to run your business and score your business and grow, kind of having all that stuff done and having it done correctly, not just on the cheap or for, using Google or whatever, but like having a proper advisor, kind of help you build that is super important.
Is that the number one that you would say in terms of money up front is on the accounting side or the finance side? Just having really good
Well,
books and really good KPIs?
yeah, I mean, I think it's, obviously, I wouldn't say like number one up front, but it kind of depends on where you're at within your, with
Sure.
the size of your business, right? But I think that's something that often, what happens is you start out the business, you get going, you get inertia, sales, sales, sales. Everybody's tracking revenue, revenue, revenue. At the end of the day, your business is valued on profitability. And
Yeah.
so, making sure that, having kind of that frame of mind, say, well, we do need revenue, but we also need to make sure that our revenue is getting accounted for properly. We're able to spend our revenue the right way and have money left over to spend it. And I think the other thing too is making sure that you have, and I've seen a lot of like the best businesses that we've sold, like all the employees are bought in. They all have, they're aligned. There's a team. It's not just, coming in for the hourly paycheck anymore. It's like making sure that incentives are aligned and making sure that the culture is such where, hey, and if you're a business owner and you're driving in, kind of going back to the Lamborghini model, like you're driving in, pulling into the front, with your own parking spot and, having that type of a culture. I mean, that's picked up on real quick by a lot of the
Yeah.
the private equity guys that come in. And also too, it shows what how you value your employees, right? Kind of having that level set and having a team culture. And it's not for me, it's for all of us. Because that is something with churn and employees that will get measured, right off the bat.
Thanks for checking out a clip from the Cashflow Contractor. We have full episodes where we go deep on topics that help you grow a construction business that runs without you so you can have less stress, more time, more money. Now, we've got other videos, other clips, but if you want to check out the full episode for this clip, you can click wherever our editor put it. It might be here, it might be there, it might be over my face, I don't know. But thank you for checking us out. We'd love to have you as a part of our audience. So subscribe or check out a full episode wherever you get podcasts.